want to make sure I frame this in a way I know how the internet gets. They like to tussle.
Take your time, pal.
The girls like to tussle.
You ain't gonna get cut off here.
Okay. You know, I know that there's some. You know,
we have a mob mentality on the internet. We are nasty as. We think that we can and should be able to see any Jesus thing we want to anybody with a public profile. God forbid it's a platform.
Chica, we actually had a public falling out on Twitter a couple years ago because I was talking about the way that hip hop treats fat black women rappers, and I was using Chica and Lizzo as an example. And at the time, Chica was like, "Don't call me fat," and I was like,
"They don't know a capital versus lowercase. They just know ugly and beautiful." And so when we're affirming to people who at the third grade level that this is what is ugly and this is what is beautiful, it's a slippery slope.
3X sold out first. Sees it sold out and is like, damn, y'all fat ass sold my shit out. Like, y'all some big backs.
But she dug her heels in it. And it's almost like she got angry at, how dare you tell me that I can't talk about fat folk.
Now, I have my own personal qualms with the Representation Matters crowd, so I mind my business. However, because the Black Brunch Brigade's not going to get me. However.
It's too late. They're already in the chat reacting.
Okay. Hello, beautiful black people.
Hey, sister.
Hello.
We are actually doubling back on a topic because I think we can have a larger discussion. A couple of weeks ago now, I want to say at least a couple of weeks ago, Cardi B was in a bunch of internet controversy because I'm going to let Cindy give the comprehensive backstory. This is my curse, my little glance at the issue that she had been on live with her fans, and she was talking about that the shirts had sold out, and she was like, "Oh, y'all a bunch of big backs or whatever because all the 3XLs or whatever sold out." That's what happened. That was a little interaction with her fans. That gets to the larger internet, and everybody says, "Well, that's fatphobic of you. They're your fans. Why would you call them big back fat motherfuckers just off them purchasing your shirts?" And then that descended into chaos. Now, this I'm going to say, first and foremost, I love Cardi B. I am a full-on member of the Body Gang. Let me state my biases up front and my desire to put my hand in the sand when anybody is insulting Cardi. Okay, any criticism for Cardi, I'm over here. I love Cardi. I love Cardi when Cardi was still a stripper. I was listening. I gone to see Cardi perform Gangsta Bitch Music Volume 1. Okay, so I said it to say.
I'm really trying to tell people.
I am a member of Body Gang. So should Cardi at any point be slandered throughout this or criticized, rightfully so? Anything that she may or may not see that may upset her, I just want to say, Olay did not endorse it. The Olay of Olay and Friends did not. It wasn't me. It wasn't I. I'm here to have a larger discussion, I think, about the way that we talk about, think of fatness in general, but also fat phobia and our desire to maintain it, the resistance anybody has to any level of maybe big back, calling big back is a bad thing. Maybe we shouldn't be on that. And the way that turns into such a vitriolic debate, that's what I'm kind of here to talk about. But Cindy, give everybody the tea on why it got so bad.
Well, let's talk about it. So there were two things that were happening at once, if that makes sense. So from my understanding, Cardi was on live with majority of her fans and she was selling merch. Of those merch t-shirts was the size 3X. The 3X sold out first. So she sees it sold out and is like, damn, y'all fat ass sold my shit out. Y'all some big backs. On what Chick-fil-A for y'all. Starts kind of, apparently her fans had already began the jokes in the comments and she joined in on the joking and just kind of took it to an extra level of damn, y'all fat as hell, just y'all sold my shit out, So of course, some of her fat fans, her non-fat fan, or her fat people who were not her friends, begin to say that's inappropriate for you to be saying to your people who sold you out, who spent their money on your product and sold you out. So then she chimes in and says, I ain't that deep. I'm not apologizing. I said what I said. Meant what I meant. Y'all need to just come up for air. It's just not that serious. So I'm I really wasn't around for the Samira aspect. I believe that Cardi called Samira out in her video, although Samira wasn't talking about her directly at all. And so Samira responded to that video and recommended that Cardi read some literature about fatphobia to understand why what she said was problematic and inappropriate to say as far as talking that way to your fans. Cardi responds saying, I ain't reading all that shit. Get over it, move on. I said what I said. And that, of course, created more controversy. So where I came in was from the aspect of professionally. This is your business. You are selling a product to your customers. Why are you joining in on any kind of ridicule, even if the customers are the ones joking about it? Why, as the face, are you the one joining in and going as far as to no Chick-fil-A for y'all? Like, why are we doing that? That's not smart money-wise. Like, this could have been a real cute, my big fan sold me out, where my skinny girls at? You know, that could have been a real cute different way to do it. And instead of like picking on and harping on the demographic that sold you out and put money in your pockets. And so I make that video. Somebody responds and says, well, shouldn't we give her a pass? She's not a professional person. That's not her anchor avenue. And I responded and said, no, this is very much one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish professionalism. It doesn't take rocket science to understand that you shouldn't be chastising people who are putting the most money in your pockets. And I said, I think it's odd. I think it's hypocritical that it's okay for her to hold accountable Tasha K for her slanderous behavior and take her to court and take her through the ringer in court. But when she's being held accountable for her hurtful words, it's ain't that deep, get over it, move on. Cardi B herself responds to that video in the comments and tells me that it's different because Tasha K, what she said was not true, was false things about her that was hurtful. And that's what took her to court. Whereas her fans are fat. So what she was saying was true. What happened with Tasha K isn't true. Do you understand what I'm saying now? Or are you too woke? You need to go back to sleep? Like, she was trying to be funny with me. So of course I responded and so lovingly walked her through what I was saying of, I'm aware that Tasha K being sued was intentional and was a consequence for her actions, as it should have been. The point of me bringing that up was to just say, if you have the wherewithal to hold someone accountable for their hurtful words, then when it is your time to be in that hot seat for your hurtful words, sit in that hot seat, sir. You can't do both, you know? That was the point. And I said that for you to be going so hard to double down and not apologize, not recognize that, hey, maybe I messed up, y'all. That is really unbecoming and that is really telling. And if I spend money on you, I'd be upset. Like, you're losing, like your fans are in the comments saying, I refunded my money, I called it a stop payment because I don't want to be a part of this, because I don't appreciate how far she's going in doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on her point. So I was letting her know, like, you sitting here worried about us putting all the energy in our comments. You should put that kind of energy into the album rollout, because you worried about the wrong things. Like, doing all of this while you're getting ready to unroll out an album, it's not, this ain't money-wise, girl, this ain't it. So it kind of created this back and forth between the two of us in the comments of her doubling down again that Tasha K was a different situation. That's not fair to compare. And she disagrees. I let it ride because clearly we were not on the same page with what I was trying to say. But that's the gist of what happened. I didn't come in it directly responding to Samira. I was more so coming from it from the professional standpoint of, professionally, you don't talk to your customers that way. And I don't care if the customers are talking that way. You, as the person, the face of the brand, don't jump in on that same kind of time. That's just not how you do that. So that's the gist of what happened from my standpoint. Yeah. That was a lot. Whew.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, child.
A whole lot.
I think there's an element of, sometimes I think there are people who exist in a different world from us, and sometimes their worlds bleed over unintentionally, because the reality is this: people are very comfortable. The average Black person in the community does casually make fun of fat people, big back this, da-da-da-da-da. So it isn't offensive in her world. The way from how she receives it, she is doing what is completely typical in her world. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? Why am I being criticized for something that they all do? It's like, not right. It doesn't make rightfully, but I think that's the perspective, the POV of what's happening, why she'd be so blown away. I do think there's also an element of probably feeling like she's having this live and talking to her fans who are good with this. Like, I guess, like, you know, it's when you have a private live chat with your audience and you engage in them and you in whatever conversation they have and laughing and kicking or whatever. So in her mind, this is that that private this. These are the people who buy in merch, a very small selection of anybody's actual fan base.
Yeah.
So she's thinking if these people in this chat were fine with it, but then it gets to the larger apparatus, and then there's these bunch of people saying they were offended who aren't necessarily the people she thought she was talking to or fans. That doesn't make it right. I'm only adding context to what I think is her thought process on why she responds to things the way that she responds to things. And I think a lot of people have despite the fact that this was a big to-do for like a week or 2 weeks in our circles, people moved right on, love Cardi again, laughing at whatever, because I think it's a reflection of the fact that the larger apparatus is in the larger community, they don't think Cardi is wrong. Like that is normal how they behave. And so I think that's why she's like why she refuses to apologize, and because they do see it. The average people go around acting like, well, being fat is bad. It's factually a bad thing. It's bad for you. It's bad for your health and all these different things. So they think that it's an objective truth to just say that in her mind. So that's all I'm adding for what I think is context.
Yeah, and I think it's actually interesting because I think about that moment, but then also the courtroom moment at the same time. Because I said both are fat phobic in terms of the comments that she's actually just making. Like you can look at her, right? And she said, well, right? And so even in that kind of gesture too, I thought it was actually very interesting to see like how vast and sometimes segmented the internet can be as well, because though TikTok is having this entire moment and Twitter's having this moment with her in terms of wanting to engage in this discourse and conversation around fat phobia and what does it look like to do that, because now there's a different ethic that happens when these are your people who are purchasing, because now these are your consumers. Now they are buying and supporting your stuff. So is there a level of responsibility you have to them versus, which I think is a very interesting juxtaposition of when you're in the courtroom and now everybody's joking because they're like, oh, Cardi, this is a proper album rollout because now you're making fun of this other lady who you said is security heavy, right? Don't matter how you face it, right? But people were okay with that fat phobia, but they were not okay with this other fat phobia. So I think it's a very interesting conversation because it reminds me of like, depending on where you enter, are you like the shade room talk of the internet? Are you the social media talk, social justice talk of the internet? Where do you fall in? And so it's interesting to see how Cardi's audience is so vast and picking and choosing when morality is going to be a place of conversation in terms of like, what do they deem as acceptable fat phobia versus like what is unacceptable fat phobia? Because I'd be interested to see what is the crossover in that audience being okay with her directly talking about somebody who they feel as if Cardi was in the right for versus now on social media when she's talking directly to her fans. And so for me, it's a conversation on like people's politics is still wishy-washy and it's not that solid, because it's nice to do a virtual signal versus actually just doing the work and saying like across the board, she was actually very wrong. Because even I had to sit there and be like, I said, hold on. And I had to check myself because I was just like, oh, this is very different. Because even as I was catching up on the Samira stuff, I was like, now, girl, now you doubling down and you want to be wrong and strong. And I get it, because growing up in the hood, this is regular stuff that you hear all the time. But after you're a certain point in time, like you're accountable in my personal opinion, like when you have a public platform and it's as large as it is, there's a different sense of responsibility that does come with it. So I think around that hood to fame pipeline and like that adjustment period as well. Doesn't mean she's right, but I think the public perception is interesting to me.
I gotta throw a flag on the play.
Chica, what you saying?
Oh no, I can
No,
wait.
go ahead,
Deshaun.
please.
I gotta throw a flag on the play because when we're talking about marginalized groups and the experiences of the environments that they grow up in, to say that like certain things are not even permissible, because I don't think any of us are saying that, but like normalized, it's almost the same as being like, well, yeah, this person said something that was microaggressive or racist, but we grew up in America and we were used to hearing things like that. So of course that person didn't think they were wrong. And you have to choose when or not you want to take offense to things, when like there should be not a overall like end all be all of what's right and wrong, because I guess we're all going to have different opinions on that, but like we can't necessarily skirt around the topic of like why it's wrong and why we should hold people accountable. And as someone who has been dragged through hot coals and glass and rusty nails on the internet for things that I've said, there's these like horns that come out to protect ourselves as public figures who don't necessarily mean harm but create harm. And I think that in this moment, it would have been a teachable moment and a moment to listen to a marginalized group and people who don't even belong to that group who are saying, hey, yo, this is wrong. And so when you're like, nah, this is why it's different, and you start creating all these different caveats as to why your word shouldn't be taken in a way that's offensive, it makes the entire moral compass shaky. It makes that entire ground that you stand on very shaky, which is like we run into it a lot too when we talk about Donald Trump, because we body shame the hell out of that man. And I even sit there and giggle because he's a demon. But at the same time, there's people built like that didn't do nothing to me. And so I have to then reckon with the way that my words, when directed at someone who's doing harm or is a bad person, quote unquote, how that affects someone who's not a bad person but has similar physical attributes. I saw a post on Threads recently that was like, when you fat shame people you don't like, you're also fat shaming people you do. And so when we're talking about like even within her audience, those people had already purchased and sold out that merch. So who's to say they would be okay with those comments, you know, like, and they may even have biases that cause them to be able to forgive her more easily because they know that she's probably not a terrible human being. But at the same time, it's not about whether or not you're a good or bad person. Sometimes it's really just about the effect that you have and that your words have and what it perpetuates. Because after all this, there's going to be somebody out there who calls somebody else security big or security strong when it comes to their body size because they saw someone else say it, thought it was funny. And then it just makes this culture of fat phobia that much more harsh and not taken seriously because it's all jokes. Big back, haha, it's jokes. I see people twig thin, like who's use the word big back or the phrase
It is
big back.
infuriating. Yeah.
And it's so annoying because I'm like, you don't even understand the ramifications and also the personal struggles that a lot of people have with their body and body image to even use that terminology when you've never experienced that. So like, let's, slow our roll. You got too much dip on your chip sometimes. You got to take a step back and actually realize what you're saying and why it's offensive. Like that's my take on it, at least.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as someone who is also a really big Cardi fan, who also happens to be known for my work on anti-fatness, I have been sitting a lot with like this entire thing because, me being a fan of anybody will never stop me from being clear about my politic and how people have fucked up. And so as I was like following what was happening with all of this, I follow a lot of like, I'm mutuals on Twitter with a lot of Cardi's like Barty gang fans. Not like folks who are just like listeners, but like people who have like the stan pages. I follow a few of them, and they were cracking some of the jokes around, oh, these 3Xs like sold out, right? And Cardi, one thing that I have always felt like is pretty annoying, not just about Cardi, but about celebrities in general, are the ways that they engage their stans, particularly on Twitter. There's a certain like, what's the word I'm looking for? Culture that's created online between celebrity and stans, where they feel like they are like, they have formed actual relationships. And Cardi engages Barty gang, like stan pages, like they're her actual family. And I'm like, girl, you are a celebrity. These people are like kids or whatever with like a couple thousand followers online, but you are an actual celebrity. How you engage them, like your words don't just, you're not just talking to them as though like you're talking to your family, you're talking to the world. Everyone's going to engage you in that way. So watching her like talk that way, I saw like when some of it first started, I was like, I know for a fact this is going to take off. I already know that because you're not talking to just your fans. You're talking as a celebrity. And so to watch it unfold, I wasn't surprised. And I will also say I'm a fan of Samira's, and I stand 10 toes behind her, particularly because I think in this moment where fascism is on the rise, one of the earliest indicators of fascist violence in the world you can see is through fashion, and we've witnessed the ways that like people, models, influencers, folks who have gotten famous over the years have excuse me, turned to Ozempic, they've turned to intentional weight loss, and they have made their entire like platform centered around fitness and anti-fatness as a way to sort of unintentionally, I don't think is conscious at all, to present in a way that is patriotic, which is to say to present as thin. And Samira is one of the only ones who is standing 10 toes behind being fat in fashion and reminding folks that like fat folks deserve to have clothes that fit. So I will always rock with her for that. I didn't feel like what she said was wrong. I didn't feel like what she said was wrong or was bad. She quite literally just said, "Hey, this is fatphobic." Like she even said, "I'm a fan of Cardi's. Like I really enjoy Cardi's music, but this is fucked up." And I think for me, watching people move as though it wasn't was just like, what are we even really doing at this point if we can't even acknowledge the fact that somebody making a joke about fat folks selling out their clothing like is not fat phobic? But I think the most hurtful thing for me out of everything, because all of it was just kind of like, it wasn't like whatever to me, but it was just like, all right, it's not surprising. But Cardi said on a live or something, she was like, I'm not going to read any books about fat phobia because fatness is not killing people. I'd rather spend time, or rather, fat phobia is not killing people. I would rather spend time watching a documentary about gentrification because that is directly killing Black people. And for me, that's when I perked up. Like, girl, the literature that Samira was telling you to read quite literally shows you exactly how anti-fatness or fat phobia is killing fat people. But because we refuse to acknowledge fat folks as a marginalized group in society, we don't really want to understand how fat people are being killed by anti-fatness, or that fat people are being killed at all. And just to your point, Cindy, I think that was just like a missed opportunity for not only herself to learn, but for her fans and folks who listen to her to learn with her. Like, on a very public journey of acknowledging how real and violent anti-fatness is, and just a very public journey of accountability, which I think we don't ever really get to see. That even from like a brand perspective, right? Like this has nothing to do with my actual morals, values, politics. From a brand perspective, that could have done something much different for this album rollout for her than just whatever she chose to do.
Yeah. I think for me is when she said that it's not killing folks, I'm like, girl, how many people have we lost to BBL surgery? Like, you have notoriously talked about getting these surgeries, and also the conversation around when after your pregnancy and the snapback, the pressure to maintain a certain size after you've gained weight during a pregnancy, like, it is literally killing. It is. And I think the fact that you're not interested in reading that shows me like how disposable you see this. Because again, like you said, Deshaun, like this could have, and Cindy, this could have been a conversation like, hey, like, I actually up. I shouldn't have said that. Like, my bad. Like, my bad. And I think people would have forgave her for that had she said, my bad. Like, I was just joning or whatever. But she dug her heels in it. And it's almost like she got angry at how dare you tell me that I can't talk about fat folks. And I just think that shows you where the culture is at. Like, because we've been going, like the girls talk about, well, we're not going back. We never left. Like the Big Back, we never left. What are y'all talking about?
Yeah.
Because the Big Back song has begun a lot of like TikTok like clicks. People enjoy making like content like that. You're seeing the content return of folks putting pillows in their stomach, being okay with fat suits. So we all just pretended like we cared. The same thing that white folks were doing during the uprisings in 2020. We pretended to care versus
black
like,
box.
The blackout,
Listen, like,
Abby.
Lord.
we got to
stand.
support the black owned restaurants on Uber Eats, girl. We got to get the
Shout out to the
black.
people.
Listen, we got to get the black capitalists. We got to allow them to continue to explore more black workers. So it just kind of just shows you where we are. Like even like years later, like this stuff never left, and it hurts my feelings because that was simple. Like I saw that, I said, okay, there's nothing wrong. Like yeah, like she's not going to stop because sadly, a lot of these artists, Megan, love you down too, sister. All of y'all are anti-fat. Like Megan, some of her recent music is always talking about her waist size being small. And even that caught me off guard listening to the music. And I'm like, I like Megan. I don't know her. But I was caught off guard when she said that. And it's okay to acknowledge, but to see the way she responded to Samara, it's like, damn, girl, you that upset? Like, sister, like, what is going on? Like, what's the tea?
Yeah, because I think it's interesting to watch people's rub when you do bring it up. And I think around like a time when I worked at an all boys high school. And so in that space, sometimes you can tell because they had to tuck in their shirts. It was a very specific uniform. And I used to not get all of my like kudo points as a teacher because it was tied to, did you redirect the student to make sure their uniform was on correctly? And for me, I was just like, I paid attention to the students who would like untuck their shirts and stuff because they were nervous around having their bellies hang over. And so in class, they would be tucking out their shirts the entire time. And so when anybody would come in to observe my class, it would be like, oh, well, Richard, did you redirect so-and-so? Did you do this? Did you let them know that their uniform's not being worn right? And I was like, I think there needs to be a conversation on expanding the uniform options because there's actually a safety. And when I said I said I'll take the points. I'll be docked for them, whatever. I don't care. But that child, a couple of them were the most participatory when they were able to wear a sweater over or they were able to untuck their shirts because now they're not consistently worried around like, now does my body look away? Are people paying attention? And I was like, I don't even think we think around from a child standpoint and a developmental piece. Everybody's nervous around, does this body look right? Is this what's going to be here? But everything that is now being signaled, because I'm like, there's even something to say around like this wellness and everybody like doing all their gym content and like that uptick that's happening. I said, everybody want to get in the gym. And I said, y'all don't piss me off.
With COVID.
But anyways, I think it's like an interesting piece of like when I pushed back on some of my administrators, it was more so like, well, this is the policy, this is what it is. I said, well, there's also a budget where you can expand this option to still see a return on your numbers, but also create a safety for students to be able to learn. So when you talk around that comment that Cardi made of like, it's not killing people. No, it's starting as early as childhood and and you're even harming their opportunity to an equitable education because you believe fatphobia or you believe fatness is a choice. I said, child, that's not how this works. People's bodies change and evolve. But when you prevent the opportunity for that change or for a little bit of a push to just simply expand a uniform, that's when it becomes an issue. So I thought it was like interesting because I always think around this tied to that experience I had with my students and trying to be able to advocate, but watching how people would contort themselves to make excuses.
I appreciate you for that a lot. Like, I appreciate that.
I think people...
It was a learning moment for me. I had to figure it out. I was like, something's not connecting here. So like, I had to take a moment to check myself. Yeah.
I think people live in a world where, and I think the reality is that people do not think all forms of oppression and all discrimination is made equal. They don't. They actively are taught that it's not. In fact, like that's the legal system in the United States. Like racism is factually, legally held as a higher form of discrimination than sexism, and everything else falls under like other. So basically, if something is racist and it's challenged, it's analyzed under strict scrutiny. If it's sexist, then it's intermediate scrutiny. If it's anything else, it's rational basis. It's light work. So I said this to say is like, I think the reason why it's seen differently, like I feel like I can't be as angry with people that don't understand or see why it's the issue that it is, or why Cardi B's attitude is that, oh, I'm not going to go waste my time reading about this. I'm going to read about gentrification, is because so far as it currently stands in our society, we have not addressed fat phobia as or even the experience of fat people as a legitimate form of discrimination that makes their life worse. It's only ever been addressed in the sense of feelings. You know what I mean? Body positivity, and that's all it's ever been talked about as.
Correct.
It's never been this larger apparatus. Like, and that's even for educated people. The only reason I know the things that I know is because I read Deshaun's book and I talked to Deshaun. I didn't know that shit. And I was already an attorney. You know what I mean? And I didn't know, I wasn't thinking about it in this way. And so people are, the thing that I think makes it a little different to Chica's example, what I think makes them not necessarily to like, okay, well, I don't see it the same. I think it is the same, but why it doesn't outrage me in the same way when I see people, you know, exhibit fatphobia or say fatphobic things or anything, is because I know that we are so incredibly, we are taught to be fatphobic towards ourselves. You know what I mean? There's a certain level of like, we are taught to constantly police our own bodies. We live in a state of fatphobia. I think it's almost hard for me as a person to know that I have just as much internalized fatphobia towards myself, maybe not others. And I don't say those things about other people, but I know how I feel about me for sure, to like really act crazy about the next man that says things, you know what I mean? That deep down in my heart, I'm like, when I feel like I'm a big bitch, I'm sick. You know what I mean? So I said it to say, I think there's a level of, our society has an awareness, even if people are not sold on the levels of what racism is and yada, 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 and all what counts as sexism and what counts as misogyny. And they're not even sold on acknowledging sexism and shit. The word patriarchy upset niggas. They get to typing immediately. You know what I'm saying? So they have not been made aware in the same way that they're aware of the structural problem of racism. That's why Cardi's like, oh, gentrification, this matters, this thing. It reminds me of when I was 17 when I started college, and they gave me an African American studies class to take as a part of my learning community cluster. And I was like, when my dumb 17-year-old ass was like, I'm gonna take this, I'm Black. Stupid. But that's, you know what I mean? But it's not a certain level of like, they don't think there's anything more to fatness. Fatness is a personal problem. Never mind. That is a personal problem. This is kind of what I've been talking about in my Politics of Ugliness video I put out on my main channel, Olurinati. People think it's a personal thing. They think you have an obligation. You know what the beauty standards are. You know what the health, no one gives a fuck about health. That in and of itself is a pretense. No one gives a rat's ass about health. But they say that because that's the pretense, is it's bad for you objectively because health, and thus if something is bad for you and this, you can change it. You've made a decision to deal with this, and thus that could never rise to the level of, you can't do nothing about being Black. You can't do nothing about being a woman. You can't do nothing. You know what I mean? That's the standard with which we think of oppression in our world. Like there's a clip in there's a scene in Desperate Housewives, or an episode, when Gabrielle Solis is trying to adopt a baby and she doesn't want any of the ugly women's babies at all. And so the minute that the ugly ladies, she's like, fuck them, fuck their baby. She goes and finds this white, skinny, blonde woman that she says is pretty, so she wants her baby. But that lady don't want to give her the baby because she Mexican. So she's mad as fuck. She's like, I'm gonna sue this bitch. That's racist as hell. And her husband was like, well, we were discriminating against all them ugly women. We didn't want their ugly babies. And she was like, don't say nowhere in this world ain't no, you can't discriminate against ugly people. And we truly think of things like that. If legally something is permissible, we do not see it on the same level. We see racism over here, racism up here, sexism here. To people, fatphobia is just a matter of your feelings. They think it's made up. They don't know enough about it. So I guess that's the reason why, for me, I identify fatphobia. I see when this is happening. I see why these comments are that and why they're based in it. But I understand. I guess I have a more of a grace for understanding why people are so resistant, so hesitant, and all these different things, only because I know that they are far less exposed to like critique of that than they are other kinds of discrimination.
I have to fundamentally slightly disagree with you.
That's fine.
I don't think that they are unaware or not exposed. I think it goes back to your other point. They don't they don't care. They don't care. It's been presented for years. There's so many people who've spoken up about it, but because, to your point, people think like, oh, well, you can change it, you can fix it. They don't have the grace that you're giving them to give to fat people. So like, I can't conjure up any emotions of like, oh, well, you just don't know. You just don't get it. This is what it is. Like, no, because people tell them.
In terms of just general being that they don't understand they're shaming fat people. I meant in the sense of why Cardi B does not understand that it's a much more serious problem when she makes a comment like, oh, people are not dying because of this. That's what I specifically meant, is that they don't understand the larger apparatus and all these things that it's tied to. I know, no, they know they're being fatphobic. They know it's fat people. I'm not saying that. I said they don't understand. I was saying I understand. I have a grace for why they don't understand that there's a bigger problem than they think it is, and it's not more than people's feelings.
I think that people have been presented with enough pushback about why fatphobia is wrong to know now that there is a larger apparatus, even if they don't dive into it. I think that they, in their brains, like you're saying, basically stop at, oh, I'm just being mean, but that's my opinion. But there's, anytime like we bring up fat phobia, there is like a subsection that's just like, well, you should feel lovely about yourself, and whatever stage you're in, you should accept yourself. And that is a huge conversation, and that's the commercial aspect of it. But when there have been like actual voices that speak up and dedicate their lives and their platforms to anti-fatness, like they are presented with the reasons and the ways that these things are harmful. They just do not care.
Yeah.
And so it's
No, go ahead, please.
Go ahead,
Please.
Deshaun.
Chica,
I do
Yeah.
want to piggyback off what you were saying, Chica, because I completely agree. And I think beyond them not giving a if we're going to talk about fat phobia within the Black community especially, I think a lot of people, Black people, don't want to let fat phobia go because it's one of the few ways they benefit in our society. I think that for a lot of Black people, we might be Black, but you're bigger than me. And that's the dig that I will always have over you, because no matter what, I can always use that and I can always wield that quote unquote power over you in a sense. So I find that in other marginalized groups, fat phobia is the one thing that they have over other people in that same group that can be used against them. So it's like, it's beyond not giving a f. It's, I give a f, but I give a f in how I benefit from the system. I give a f in the fact that as long as the system is alive and well, I have a one up. I have something in the society that gives me some kind of leverage over you that I don't want to give up. Because if I give that up, I don't have anything. And so
it's
I
crazy
think that
'cause-
it's,
My
yeah,
bad.
I think it's
There's
that.
a
Go ahead, you're good.
correlation between anti-fatness and anti-blackness. And
Yep.
so even in saying like, oh, I'd rather go read about gentrification, it's all performative. Because if you
Like,
care
girl,
about that, then why don't you care
it's a
about
circle.
this? Have
Girl,
you
she
ever
ain't reading
noticed
no
that?
Because she does not know those
She
things.
ain't reading no damn gentrification.
But to be
Have you
fair,
ever-
She reading them
who
damn
doesn't know
comments.
those things
She
are
reading them
connected?
comments about. She
Have you
reading
ever
them damn.
noticed
You
that,
think
like, with
Cardi
our
and them
bodies,
know the connection between gentrification and how all these systems are tied together? No, she don't.
no, she doesn't.
not
I don't
at
think
all.
she
Bet my
cares
money that
though.
she does not
It's-
understand that gentrification's connection to anti-blackness and anti-fatness is connected to anti-blackness. I know she just thinks is we all in this world. Everybody don't want to be fat. Don't want some people fat. This is all a. I know she is not thinking as that as a specifically Black problem.
No.
Yeah, and it's crazy
So-
because like you notice that when it comes to like the Maori, when it comes to like Samoan people, their build and their structure is never classified as fat. It's always strong. It's always talking about how like this build belongs to, it has cultural significance and beauty. And like you see that within their communities. And of course, it's going to vary from community to community about like how we look at our bodies. But overall, I don't see anyone calling them fat or like saying like, oh, that body type is gross. But when it comes to Black people, oh, it's sloppy, it's lazy, oh, it's big back, it's, oh, look at the lady with the arm and she's the one who's making the good food. Like,
she can cook and
it's
she can
all
sing.
jokes. Yeah,
Labor.
she can cook and she jolly. Like,
Yeah,
we
like-
become freaking Santa Claus within our community, and we don't defend each other in our bodies. And it goes back to that common saying when people are like, ain't your mama fat? Like, don't you have a fat person in your family? Like, didn't you derive from some kind of person with a larger stature? And even if you didn't, like, you know someone. So, like, the ways that we don't protect each other, and then we try to fall back on Blackness and be like, well, I'm Black, so I get this. And like, you're right, Cindy. Like, it really is a thing where people want the upper hand in some way, some kind of leverage, some kind of, like, I don't know, we want someone to whip, essentially. And when you're like, oh, fatness is bad for you, and also it's funny, I get away with it. And I can't give nobody no passes for that.
Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation because I think about me growing up, and for all intents, my family's from Charleston, South Carolina, and so they're all just like, "Child, you're gonna be big bone one day, Marquise. Like this is gonna happen." And they love a good big bone to throw out there. And so I always find it like super interesting, like regionally, how my family has actually talked around weight, because I hear much more explicit, and maybe it's because I'm not down south enough. But like my family up north, like Philly, northeastern, whatever area, very much so like, nah, child, don't be fat. Da, 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 da. Like that's a very clear thing that they use it as a dig. Versus like when I go down south, it's very much so like a marker of like respect. Like you put on your grown man weight finally. Like we were waiting for this to kind of happen because it happens in our family. And so I say that to kind of give the example of like what I grew up hearing culturally is interesting to kind of hear, because that's how me and all of my siblings pretty much kind of like internalized it. And so because I was the thinnest of each of my siblings each time, they're like, child, put some weight on. Try to figure it out.
Put some meat on them bones.
Put some meat on them bones. They love a good put some meat on them bones. And so I've always found it super interesting to kind of see, like, once I started finally putting on some weight as I was getting older, they were like, "Fine, it took you long enough. We told you that gene was going to catch up to you."
Just because you're a man and you're not fat.
Well, yeah, and that's
why.
the other piece.
Yes,
that's
and
what I was
no.
going to
You're
get.
not fat. No, but also that's a big part of it. If Marquise was
It's a small
actually
window.
fat,
Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's a big different thing.
big difference.
When people are skinny, they love to tell you, "Oh, put on some weight. You're skinny." That let you actually put on that weight for true.
And now, and
it's
that's
a
where
small window from like put some meat on the bones
I'm
to
telling
all right,
you.
lay off the extra.
I don't know nowhere
you
where
know?
objectively fat gets treated right as we see in the Black community. Nah,
I think no, and I'm absolutely here for that. The point I was going to connect is like, as even after my sister had her second child, they were like, "Now, girl, how you getting back in that gym?" And so I saw like the very clear difference on like, even from a gendered experience, how my sister, on a binary gender experience, they saw like me and her in that dichotomy. And I said, "Now, girl, now there's no way that y'all was talking to me like this and you're talking to her like that." But then you see each of my other siblings who are larger than me, and I said, this is interesting. So it goes to like kind of affirm the point of like, because of also being a man in some space and occupying these spaces, how they talked around my brothers versus how they talked about my sister felt fundamentally different. And so it's interesting to watch the policing happen within the family, but also having the cognitive dissonance of hearing "get some meat on them bones" and then being shamed when you have the meat on them bones, and trying to figure out where is that tug of war actually begin. So it's interesting because me and my sister have these conversations all the time of just like, now she feels the pressure of like, now that she has kids and she's settling in, she's like, now I got to get to the gym. And so even that extra pressure to see all of this thinness activity happen, or the pursuit of thinness begin to happen, it then kind of like pushed her and then also my family to kind of like shame in that similar sense. And so I'm in a in between space in this conversation, but it was like trying to not rationalize, but kind of process out loud like the messaging I heard growing up and how that kind of impacted those around. So hopefully that helps kind of contextualize not just like the intellectual piece and like the responsibility piece, but also like for us as human beings, when did we kind of begin to unlearn or recognize like fat phobia was a thing and how we kind of occupy spaces no matter what the body type is.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the reasons why I hate going home for Thanksgiving.
Don't get me started, because Thanksgiving, they love talking about somebody's body.
Honey, the
I'm like, I had
to judging.
Listen, I had to have a conversation with my grandmother about them. Like, girl, either we gonna stop or I'm just not gonna come around.
Yeah,
like I'm not gonna deal with that.
Deshaun.
I will say,
yeah,
go ahead, Deshaun.
Justin, you talk. Oh yeah, and then Deshaun immediately next.
Yeah,
I definitely don't want to cut my boo off. Period. Also, it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. So while we were talking about this, I'm thinking about the conversation that has been had about that Black woman who picture went viral. Her name is Naomi.
I'm
trying to.
The statue.
Yes.
The statue.
The statue.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
no, not the statue in New
the
York,
Black
but
woman just this week. Naomi, she did the interview for People Magazine.
Another dark-skinned Black person being talked about because of their looks. So, I mean, look where we at. Her name is Naomi.
Got to Google, right?
Yeah, her name is Palua. I'm trying to make sure I'm saying her name correctly.
She just had the interview on the cutting room floor.
Hello?
Yes.
I haven't seen that yet, but shout out to my guy Nathan Vincent over at People Magazine. He wrote about it. I'm thinking about like when we say that like Cardi B doesn't know and it's just jokes. I think about how many people came into her comment section on this picture and just thought it was just jokes. Like, this person I don't find desirable, I don't find them beautiful. Let me comment and let them know like that they're ugly. Like, oh, this is just fun. This is something that we do. And how that affected this woman, how that blew up. Now the conversation has went viral about this woman's looks. This is a person.
Yeah.
Like I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Olay. I'm just
No. I was about to say, I'm glad you brought up this particular example. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, like I just want
her name is Naomi. If you look up People Magazine, just look up People Magazine and Naomi. She comes up. She's this thin, dark-skinned Black woman from, I think, Zambia.
I
Oh,
saw her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I'm
saw her.
here.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm
She just
Yes.
here.
had
I'm
a larger
here.
Yeah. And it
nose.
was
Great point.
Mhm.
Great
Yeah.
point.
I think to me that's a
Mhm.
perfect example though of this scenario of no one understanding to me the fundamental problem and kind of what I was talking about in my politics of ugliness video, because yes, proof. This is a shining example of how lookism functions and how we expect people to like buy into beauty and change themselves and blah blah blah. And we
Futurism,
think it's
all of the
okay to be
things.
so
Yeah.
beautiful example of that. But even people's response to it, to that the people that are on her side is a reflection of our inability to let go of the system, because people are not saying, she's saying, I'm used to this. I've lived my life like this. I know that people think I'm unattractive. I know I'm conventionally unattractive, but I love myself and I'm fine with that. Instead of people use the people who are on her side, hear what she's saying and recognize what she is exposing, like how the system treats people who are considered unattractive. All they want to do is go, she's beautiful, she's beautiful, she's beautiful. We're always just trying to get more people to buy into beauty or to believe they're beautiful or to accept beauty. And that's to me an example of like the failures of the body positivity movement that just happened. It was never about exposing the problem with the system. It was about allowing more people
Shut
to
up
be
and believe in
considered
yourself.
beautiful and buy into
Mhm.
beauty. And if ultimately you continue to me, nothing is newer other than like the system was being reinforced the entire time. And I think even in how people are choosing to defend her, rather than say, hey, why do we treat unattractive people like this? Why is this news? Why do we consider people why is this something that we do? Instead, we're just going, we're recognizing, the racism or the featureism and all the different things that unpack why she's not considered beautiful. But it's still about our fundamental clinging to beauty. Like, it's still like, we want, like, that's what I see people talking about. But also, the expert Deshaun themselves is here. So why are we listening to me? Deshaun, you talk about this.
Please. I just, so there's a few things I want to say because y'all have said a lot that like has been having my mind racing over here. I think the biggest thing I want to talk about that I feel like is oftentimes lost in these conversations or just doesn't get brought up is the fact that because we live in a white supremacist society that prioritizes certain institutions, so much about the language that we know about different marginalized people and marginalized experiences, we only get after the Academy legitimizes that, right? And so the reason why I'm naming that is because Fat Studies is a 2-decade-old study. It's very new in terms of thinking about marginalized experience in the world. And because of that, so much about how, like, because we know that how people start to understand certain marginalized experiences is a language is created in the academy or language is perhaps stolen and brought to the academy and is then expounded upon through different modes of teaching, and then it then trickles down into the general public, right, through pop cultural means like social media, etc. The reason why I think that that's important to name is because while I do believe that people absolutely know that anti-fatness is violent, people do not know or do not have the language to be able to articulate what exactly is violent about anti-fatness. And I think that is where the disconnect oftentimes comes in, because people absolutely know that what they're saying is mean, right? That the jokes that they're making are rude, that the jokes that they're making are insensitive, right? People know that. We've always known that has always been true, even if what we're necessarily like, even if we don't feel like we are bad for saying those things. I think the moment that things take the turn from being mean, rude, unkind to oppressive, violent is when we start to develop language that we're able to then use to articulate this as a marginalized experience. And so when people are talking about this woman, Naomi, or when people are talking about Samira, or when people are talking about whomever they understand to be ugly, not beautiful, whatever, unless and until they have the language to be able to explain why what it is that they're expressing is oppressive, is violent, is playing into these oppressive modes of violence that is anti-fatness, they don't really see it as anything other than unkind. But what I also want to name is that, like, what we don't talk about or what we don't really see when we talk about beauty, because Olay, what you just brought up feels really important to me because I really, 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 really hated seeing how many people responded with like, oh, she's not ugly, she's beautiful, she just needs to see herself in this light or whatever. What feels important about that is, how do I frame? I want to make sure I frame this in a way because I know how the internet gets. They like to tussle.
Take your time, Pastor.
Show it.
The girls like to tussle.
You ain't gonna get cut off here.
Know, okay. You know, I know that there's some, you know,
intellectually mature individuals on the line.
Let me. What I want to say to that is, there is.
I hate. Sorry.
We really reify the very same level of violence that we're trying to undercut by responding to people who are saying, here is the analysis around ugliness that is really deeply important, by saying that no, you are just beautiful, like you're beautiful, but you just don't know it, or you're beautiful.
Believe in yourself more.
You know, like, no, we believe that black people should be able to know themselves as beautiful, just because, even though they're outside of the standard, just because blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, no, the standard is what constructs.
Your feelings should transcend reality,
right? Like, but
it's kind of gaslighty, honestly.
Well, it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Someone needs to watch my politics ugliness video.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But what the point that I really want to make is that the reason why we do this is I think because we don't really understand exactly how violent anti-fatness is and its relationship to anti-blackness. Because the things that make Black folks quote unquote ugly, the things that we understand to be quote unquote Black features, are the things that make people fat, big, large, right? Big noses, big lips, things that are in proximity to fatness or largeness. And so the people but people don't know how to explain that or how to contextualize that, because we don't understand anti-fatness in the ways that I think we should. And that, I think, is largely because it is a very new thing in the academy that hasn't trickled down yet.
Thankfully, somebody wrote about that. Thankfully, somebody wrote a book about that.
I've been in a Deshaun class all year of my own imposing, and I feel like I got an A. I listened to Deshaun, I was like, "Yep, that's what I would have asked me what Deshaun would have said." Yep, I be reading.
Yeah.
There's currently an artist on Twitter who's under fire because they decided to take this lady. Her name's Naomi. They took her and made art from her face, but her nose is a little bit smaller, her complexion is a little bit lighter, her smile lines aren't as deep, and she quoted the picture saying, you know, she's beautiful as she is, there's nothing wrong with her, but like, you changed her
what she is
in your depiction of her art.
Is it the one with the orange background?
I think so.
And a very cute, just for the record, very cute cartoon animated.
It is cute.
But that's exactly the one I saw with the viral tweet. I was like, y'all are missing the point. It's not about like affirming or beauty. God damn it.
Yeah, I retweeted it
it's a cute little picture, but it's definitely like, you kind of adding to the point of what we're trying to say, girl. You know,
right?
So yeah, what were we saying, Chica?
I struggle with this conversation a lot because I think that because fatphobia is so oppressive and so violent and also so overlooked when it comes to forms of oppression and discrimination, that we don't also hold space for people wanting to still affirm their own beauty in their own eyes. You know, like, I think we have to be able to do both at the same time without undercutting the reality of what we all experience as fat people, as people in bigger bodies, because realistically, we're taught to dislike ourselves. But once you unlearn that, when you're grouped into this category that is real of unattractive or undesirable, but you don't feel that way, it's also gaslighty to be like, well, no, it's true, you can feel pretty, but you're unattractive. Like, because it's in that way.
I think it's just about the structure.
For sure. Like, the structure exists and it needs to be addressed in order to dismantle it. So I don't disagree with that at all. I just, it's so difficult. And this doesn't apply to the people who reply to those things, who are like, no, she's beautiful and she should feel it. Like,
those people, they do that shit out of pity, and it's that I feel is performative as well. It's the same as someone looking at my Calvin Klein billboard and being like, "You're so brave, you're so brave," and it's like,
So confident.
I
wish I had your confidence.
I wish I had your confidence. I would never. Me as a size 2, I couldn't. I'm like, all right,
Okay,
well,
girl.
like that's good for you, but like there is a subsection of people who do feel attractive to themselves and are constantly being told that they are unattractive, and while they can acknowledge that that is the reality and that's the standard that they don't fit into, I think it's also equally as important to at the same time be like, and by the way, no, the I'm not. Like, if we can acknowledge that you feel this way, like this power structure exists, that you group me into this group because of featureism, lookism, colorism, fat phobia. I can address that those things those features that I might have put me into a group that now is marginalized. However, what I'm not going to allow you to do is give me this label of unattractive, regardless of what group that you put me in. Because if we're affirming this one thing, but we're trying to dismantle it at the same time, it's like we're fighting an uphill battle against ourselves. So like, I think we got to hold both flags at the same time. One doesn't mean
lowercase p, uppercase p. Stop playing.
Yeah, you watch your video, Marquise. Thank you.
I watched you too. I'm just addressing.
My fault. Yes.
I'm just because there's often a large conversation that I've like been the ire of when it comes to this. Yeah. So I'm just kind of speaking from my own perspective.
Which was like, how you reached out to me.
Hell yeah. I said, watch one talk. Okay.
We probably should tell people how Chica ended up on this episode.
I was going to talk about it. I was going to talk about that actually because
yes, let's talk about
I'm glad you brought it up because I've been dying to talk about it.
No. I was going to talk about that just because Chica, you and I don't think you'll mind me sharing this story, but we actually like had a public falling out on Twitter a couple years ago because I was talking about the way that hip hop treats fat Black rappers, women rappers, and I was using Chica and Lizzo as an example. And at the time, Chica was like, don't call me fat," and I was like, "Hey, not really calling you fat necessarily, just talking about the way that fat Black women in hip hop are treated." And we was tussling on the timeline a little bit. We was, but
tussling on the timeline
a little bit. But so I'm saying that to say that like I'm hearing you, and I think that some of what you were bringing in that moment is kind of in a way is what you're offering in this moment of like, you know, we can acknowledge people like for the ways that the world engages them, and also can acknowledge the fact that some people are not going to necessarily see themselves as individuals in that way. And my response to that has always been the same as it is with the use of the word fat. When I'm talking about a group of people who are marginalized by their bodies, I will always use the word fat. However, if I'm talking to an individual, I'm always going to ask them, you know, how they like to be referred to, because to me, that gives them, even if it's a false sense of autonomy that they otherwise don't have access to, that allows for us to at least come together on common ground in a conversation to be able to talk about what it is that I want to get to. Because I think oftentimes, because we get so stuck on language, we never get to actually get to the actual conversation that needs to be had. And so for me, I'm like, I will concede to using whatever language you want to use so that we can have an individual conversation about what it is that is structuring the world and how you experience the world. So that is to say, what I'm hearing from you and what I actually really appreciate is like, you know, it feels important to think about the ways that, yes, there are plenty of fat, dark-skinned Black folks in the world who are like, you know, I understand myself as beautiful. I understand myself as someone who is attractive. And I would never, ever, 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 ever say to them, "Girl, what? You are ugly." Like I would never. I would never do that.
The ugly group.
You part of the ugly girl.
You know like,
because for me, that is exactly why I introduced this like capital versus lowercase concept. Because for me, it's like I'm I'm always talking about structure when I use that language. I'm never talking about individual experience. Many fat Black folks in the world do not have the same like experience as individuals as fat Black folks on a larger scale do. So I would never be able to be like, girl, that's not your experience. How you gonna tell me? Because I'm the one that wrote about it. Like, I don't know your experience, boo. We don't know each other. So it's like, I say that to say, I hear you. And I think like the context matters, because if we're talking about structure, if we're talking about larger like systems, like it's important to use that language. And especially for people who are not necessarily, for people who are capital B beautiful, them approaching folks who are capital U ugly and saying like, girl, you ugly. Like it can give, okay, let's reel it on in.
Not too much.
Because we're talking about larger groups, not individuals. Baby. So I hear you.
Yeah, I think that like as intellectuals, that like everything you said is 1,000% correct. I sometimes default to the trash I see in these streets, in the internet streets especially, because they don't know a capital versus lowercase. They just know ugly and beautiful.
Yeah.
And so when we're affirming to people who read at a third grade level that this is what is ugly and this is what is beautiful, it's a slippery slope. And so I hear what you're saying and I understand exactly where you're coming from. And that's why I don't have any like concessions there. It's more so that like I choose my language in a way that the the most left behind of us can understand and grapple with, because I think it's a very dangerous thing for them, not for us. But in this context of the conversation we're having, I don't think anyone's getting it confused. I think that outside of these conversations, for the people who are like, it's just jokes, the people who really don't have the depth and understanding of the topic to understand that like there's a caste system here when it comes to beauty and the beauty standards that we adhere to. Those people don't understand that walking up to somebody and being like, you're fat, so what's your experience? Like how that can be offensive, even if it is just a descriptor. Like I remember around that time, someone was like, a fat Black, sorry, it's so funny because like when you just read it on paper, it's like, damn, but it was like a fat Black female queer rapper just dropped a song today. Y'all go support it. I'm like, yo,
my name is Chica. Like, I'm
like, okay. Exactly. I'm like, bro,
what happened to hi, hello?
I know, like,
how are you? My name is.
My name is. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, when like the perception, like, first of all, it's a difficult thing for a lot of people, but I'll speak personally. I don't like being perceived anyway. Like, I like for whatever art that I'm giving you or whatever I present to you, perceive that all you want. But like me just breathing and existing and like in whatever body that I'm in, I don't like that certain attributes being picked out and being like, let's put this, and that person was being supported. You know what I'm saying? Like they were saying, support this person because they're part of these marginalized groups. But I still don't, the cherry picking still feels a little bit like dehumanizing in a way. It's because like I'm a human being and what I'm saying and what I'm presenting is more important than necessarily these groups. But if this is if that was their platform to stand on, then it makes sense that that's what they would talk about. So I also have to check myself oftentimes where I'm like, okay, like you're coming from this place, they're coming from that place. Don't take offense. They mean well. But it's the autonomy that you refer to. It's like, I don't think it's a false sense of autonomy over oneself. I think that autonomy has been inherently taken away from us, and to reclaim it, sometimes there are certain scenarios where you have to be like, excuse me, I have a name, I am a person, I'm a human being, and apart from if you couldn't see me at all, because what is my fatness to a blind person? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is my Blackness to them? You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's different structures that end up challenging even like the most basic and well-meaning politic that sometimes I have to like speak up against and be like, all right, like
what if I told you?
So I had a question.
I was going to say, what if I told you Ray Charles used to be feeling on women's wrists to see how big they was?
I know.
Like, wise. Like,
I know.
Right.
But,
literally.
I'm gonna let you talk, Marquise. I just have a question I want to pose to everybody based on what we're talking about. How do we destigmatize fatness? Like the word fat, because at the end of the day, to me, regardless of what we're saying and how much what we want the politics to be and all of this, at the end of the day, if fat will always sting us is an insult, this descriptor or whatever, we're still like buying into that. How do we get away from, you know what I'm saying? Like ultimately it's because it's something that hurts us. And I'm saying us, like me, you know what I mean? I keep, making sure I focus on myself as not being a person who's free from internalized fatphobia and all of the things, like, and not liking these words. So I feel you, Chica. Like I've seen, it doesn't happen all the time, but I've seen, I told you the story of somebody saying I was on Hassan's stream and they were like, oh my God, Olay, I listed plus size representation meaning. I was like, whoa, whoa, what the and Chica messaged me like after, so I put out my politics of ugliness video a few days ago. And she got me on threads, like follow me back. I want to talk to you. And I was like, and Chica told me like, love the video, but I also hope there's an element of just being a person watching some shit, and you hear you like, I'm the example. Like now, granted, I did not call you ugly in that video. I was actually just defending you in passing.
The title is
Lena call me. Let Lena call me
to a video, a picture of me. In this topic, I'm like, God damn.
Listen.
So this is, it's actually funny because that was actually going to be like part of my question is like, when you are platformed and you occupy marginalized identity markers, how do you balance out being politicized no matter what?
You don't.
Right? Because I think as folks who have,
you really don't.
And so like, I think that's a little bit of like the stress and the tension that kind of happens is because there is a sense of individuality and humanity that I want to be able to hold on to. And when you're platformed, you also are become a representative for so many folks who have, and again, now I have my own personal qualms with the representation matters crowd, so I'll mind my business. However, because the Black Brunch Brigade is not going to get me. However,
it's too late. They already in the chat reacting.
Okay,
I know.
They done wrote them comments.
They got their Chelsea boots ready for you.
Right, immediately. But I think it's interesting because so even hearing that reaction, but I guess what takes me to the next point of like what Olay was asking around destigmatizing it, as like Deshaun was talking, everybody on the panel was talking. I was like, oh, the pursuit of thinness is under capitalism, and because we reward hard work, then we see those who are working out as doing the pulling their bootstraps up as the equivalent. Like, oh, I can witness you do this thing, so I can reward this achievement because now I saw you put in the work. I respect hard work. This is what needs to get done. And so it's a very visual representation of you putting in the hard work. So I think the ways, and again, this is me from an outsider's perspective, putting it in is like destigmatizing it means that we no longer have to look at thinness as the reward at the end of the journey because they associate this with healthy, attractive, all these other pieces. But in reality, I be telling people all the time, I said Lizzo's way healthier than I am because one thing about me, I'm gonna have a cheesesteak every day. Not really. Don't tell my students that. But
you should.
I think it's like an interesting, and it's a good time.
Like Marquise and Chica, y'all actually allowed me to effectively bring this back to Cardi. Because to what y'all are saying and talking about
this is not the reward. That's it.
And all of this and how we pick apart bodies and do all of these things. I think there's an element. I was gonna say this at the beginning, but ain't about Cardi. I think that what people were mad about more than even the fatphobic, the comment or anything like that or whatever. They're mad more about how they feel like she responded, how she's, But let me say this: I'm not even necessarily saying that to say it's valid. I'm saying there is an element of we do not like when who have platforms are perceived as like, we perceive them as the same way how Chica's trying to say I'm a real person, you know what I mean? But we're also like, hey, well, once you're this and you're the public figure and the structural identities and we are using you for these larger discussions or whatever, we expect you to allow those conversations to take place, those criticisms to happen, those lashings to happen. And whenever, it doesn't matter what it's about, when the celebrity's right, wrong, whatever, they're not even just celebrity, anybody with a platform. If you reply, try to defend yourself, it always becomes 15 times worse because people are more pissed off about that reply. And to my second part on that, on how Cardi responds and why and how perception, all these different things, because I saw like some of her like she windmilling and trying or whatever in the comments, and she's trying to talk about how she's talked about. I think the reality is we exist in a world that is lookist, that talks shit about you and treats you like shit based on your body, based on your this, especially in the rap game where Cardi occupies, where it's like all the bitches is bad bitch rap. You see Cardi done all all the procedures, all of this, all the content, and they still ain't enough. Oh, your body botched. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. And I think there's something that you develop when you have a platform and you feel like you get criticized more than other people, or you feel like some people get defended for this and the next thing. And I think there's something that's infuriating when you feel like there's a normalization of people picking apart your body. Like they pick apart your body, they shit on your body, and everybody talks about fat people. But somehow when you say a comment that you thought was you being funny with your little fans, they kicking your back in. And I think that's where the like rage comes from. That's not a defense of it. That's just what me saying. That's what I think it's tied to. Chica.
Yeah.
Two things. One, to answer your question about how we destigmatize fat. I'm not sure if you mean like the way we feel towards fatness or the word, but in terms of the word, I think once we stop using it as a pejorative, we can start using it as a descriptor. But doing both at the same time, it's really hard to distinguish whether or not people are coming at you sideways. And even when you know they're not, it doesn't take away the sting of what it feels like when it's also used as a pejorative, when it's also
when
used
do you
as
reclaim
an
it? When do you reclaim it? Like, when are people going to
I
stop?
feel like it's up to the
I feel like people are already
been
doing it
reclaimed.
now.
I was going to
It's
say,
already-
I think like the
What? Pretty hot and thick. You don't remember Monique?
the
Sorry.
whole thing.
Thick and fat are not the same thing. The words that if you call me thick, I'm not offended. If you call me fat, I might think we have to fight.
I want Chica to finish. I know that she said she had 2 points, but the thing that is like in my head about this is we will never destigmatize it. It's just Black folks are still having the conversation about whether or not that should be a word that we use or reclaim. Queer folks are still having a conversation about the word queer, about whether or not that's something that we should reclaim. So the word fat will always be something that is up for debate, that people will always have a sort of visceral response to, even as it has been reclaimed, because it has been. It's not something that is being reclaimed. It has been reclaimed. And so to me, it's like, if we're waiting for it to be destigmatized, we will be waiting forever, because it will never be destigmatized. But Chica, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a matter of kind of like continuing these conversations to the point that the same way that amongst certain communities, they can use certain words that were thrown at them as insults. They can use them not even in jest, but like take it in stride and use them as descriptors, or use them as like ways of identifying one another. Once we continue to have these conversations, I think that's how we gradually move towards it. But I do agree with Deshaun that I don't think it's ever going to just not be a thing. And to my second point was when it comes to the Cardi conversation, also, I am a fan as well. I just want to make that clear, because I don't need nobody being like, she switched up. I'm not. But people would have forgiven Cardi without an apology. They did forgive Cardi without an apology. So the fact that she doubled down and chose not to use that as a learning moment, a teachable moment, that's how you feel. And that's where the rage comes from. Because it's like, you don't even have the respect enough to listen when you should just listen right now. And it's not a matter of people being like, oh, you're a terrible person, because they're always going to say that. And like, I'm marginally less famous than her, so I know she's seen horrible, horrible things said about her that aren't true, that are mischaracterizing who she is as a person. So in this scenario, this tiny scenario where people are being like, yo, you hurt my feelings, and this is why, and you know it's wrong, and you know that the people who are fat within your community who support you are going to love you down regardless, why couldn't you just
Because
do
before
the
you
thing?
see the reasonable, like, this is the thing though. Before you see the reasonable, respectful critique that's like, I like Cardi, but da-da-da, you've seen 1,000 things that go, I done told y'all about this bitch. She always was blah, blah,
Look
blah,
who
da,
you're
da, da, da.
talking to,
You
though.
already
I know that.
enraged. No, I know.
I
I'm just
know
saying.
that.
That's why. That's the why. People talk as though it's like you get a list of respectable critics. Like, here's constructive critique, and here is hate, and you could click on constructive critique and engage with it and ignore hate. It's like, no. I'm a human, and my blood is boiling at 1,000 already kicking my back in before I get to constructive. And that's how so many there is no person who has a platform that has not crashed out illegitimately or has not been able to restrict.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk
Wait,
about
hold
that.
on.
Y'all ain't never crashed out? Okay, y'all ain't never
I just want to say,
I love that for y'all.
I need y'all
just
to
wanna
know
say-
this. Jason, your black shirt about to come out? The black shirt coming on?
Black Tims. Wait, hold
so
on.
I want to add
second.
2 things. Oh,
1 second. I just want to say, in this scenario specifically, though, the majority of people are fat phobic.
Yes.
So like in a lot of the cases where we're being dragged for things that we've done and said, there's at least, it's kind of almost like a 50-50 split where you see a lot of hate, you see a lot of good, you see a lot of people being like, what's going on? In this case, everyone was on her side type shit. You know what I'm saying? So like, even in you being personally pissed off that there's a group of people who are being like, oh, you're fat phobic. My God, like at what point do we become adults and do we like hold ourselves
They was on
accountable?
your side on her feed? On your feed, I mean, they were not on her side on my feed.
Overwhelmingly, I saw people
shaking
being
her head
like
she not present and the on my feed who was not on her side.
I mean, I was the that was on her side, but I mean, she had to sift to find us. She had to really like look for those of us who were not.
For sure. To find Sydney Noir, Cindy. On
I mean, I know I'm that girl, but the point
on
is,
TikTok, you think anyone's sifting to find your critiques on TikTok, Cindy? That's what I'm saying. We gotta be for real now.
I'm saying in a worldly standpoint, though, like if we're talking about fat phobia, we understand that the basis of this conversation is that people think it's okay to be fat phobic. So regardless of what was happening on the internet, well, from what I saw people being like, yeah, this was wrong, this is fat phobic, blah, blah, blah. But, and I'm as a fellow fat, like, I saw an overwhelming amount of people being like, yeah, that girl Smyra is dragging it. And y'all always want to talk about fat phobia, including fat people. So when we talk, when we think about like fat phobic people who aren't fat, plus the community that is also they have that internalized fat phobia, overwhelmingly, people were on her side. This was not a cross or a hill that she had to die on, is my entire point. Is that she didn't have to do that. So when you're hearing valid criticisms, it's cool. Like, I get it. We all get we get pissed off because people like to take things that we've done or said and then create an entire persona around that just to burn that person to the ground. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us at some point. What I'm saying is, all she had to do was be like, yo, I hear you. That was, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. But for you to know that, like, people are going to forgive you regardless. You're not losing anyone all long term over this.
That don't forgive her regardless. Is that she don't think had the right to be mad at her in the first place.
Exactly.
Exactly. But this is not Cardi's first time. Like, I remember some years ago when she made the comment about the AIDS thing. She said, I hope that you die with AIDS. Like, that's what she said in response to something some queer person said to her. So, like, I'm not a Cardi fan. I'm actually not a fan of any artist, to be honest, other than the girl behind me. Never say never. So I want to make 2 points. Like, one is log the out. Like, log out. Like, log out. Like, shout out to my girl Juicy, who made this point that the algorithm is putting all of these things in you so you can continue to be online. So you gotta be the bigger person to log off. Like, I have been ate up several times on social media to the point that I have a system that my friends even know, like, hey, unless it's like detrimental, like to the point that my number or my address is being exposed, don't tell me about it. I'm not going to tell my friends every time I'm seeing them being ate up or something, unless it's something like critical. Like, don't tell me about it. Celebrities need to log off. Cardi B is notoriously like famous for being online, reacting to everything at any moment. It's not that serious.
No, you're
not
right.
enough. It's not enough hating on you for you not to be successful.
You're right, but that also becomes a part of the brand. Like, the thing is, when you start your platform where people expect you to be engaged to the audience, and I know this even on a much, much lesser scale, when they think that you have curated a relationship with them where you are supposed to engage with them and talk to them, when you stop, for whatever the reason, they hold it against you. They use it as a marker that you are this, that you are that, you are this, you are that. So if you feel like Cardi B has always been chronically online. Like, that's how she got a platform, and even since, she has demonstrated that Cardi B been popping now for at least 10 years. Cardi been popping, and Cardi has been online the same way since, and engaging with those things or whatever. And so when you have, it's like, yeah, she should, but she obviously never developed like that skill set on logging out. And it's also, at this point, it's not even just about like choices, about her brand is so tied to that, especially with a rollout coming, you know what I mean, an album, and she hasn't put out nothing since Invasion of Privacy came out in 2018. This is not the time where she's going to come offline. So unfortunately, if you're online like that, especially, it's clear, like, think about what originally happened is merch related to this rollout and all of that is because she's trying to live and talk to these audiences. So when that's happening, when you're online, because you feel like it's a part of the, the thing, and what you need to do, before you even breathe, you already, your real feelings are spiraling and crashing out because you done seen it.
So when I say log off, I'm not talking about not being online, but you have to find a way to navigate this. Like,
Dissociate.
I would say, like, nobody is built for like this level of celebrity. Like, nobody is. Trust me.
Built to have a platform,
right?
Instagram's
Nobody's built for this. But you have to find ways to navigate it. Like, you got too many resources at this point.
That's
like,
valid.
She's not
too much
somebody
to
who
lose.
doesn't, like, you have a personal chef, you have all of these things, people drive you, you got security to keep you from throwing pins. Like, I'm not.
She has no
still
incentive though.
She has through that.
She has no incentive though to not to do what you're saying. Like I absolutely agree. As somebody who's needed,
So,
I've had to learn to shut the hell up sometimes. And just, but she's never been punished or held accountable in a way that she's like, it's better for me not to engage this. She's never.
I think
there's
there are
never
some
been
isms that are involved in the reason why that's the case too.
Yeah,
Just
like I get it being.
Throw it out there.
No, I see this. Everybody would get to the legitimate critique, the Cardi part of the conversation.
Yeah, I get like seeing the comments and seeing people continuously talk about you gets annoying. It does, but you got to find a way to like not like. I just don't understand for somebody who is so successful. It's not enough of these girls to keep you from doing your thing. Like, girl, like you're able to pay if your bills are on auto pay. I don't know what we talking about in this economy.
I wish it felt that way. Like, I wish like life worked like that. Like, oh, you being successful and all these different things made it feel any different, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. Like, it just doesn't. I don't talk to these on Twitter. I don't go on these socials or whatever because I cannot stand the way these motherfuckers talk to and about me, and I cannot engage in it. No amount of my bills paid or success in my view number changes the fact that who the fuck are you talking to when you see these people on the internet talking to you like that? And nothing crazy that when a think they have a legitimate reason, and yeah, they sure do, but it's wrapped up in you, bitch. I can't stand you. I always didn't like you, and everyone who didn't like you in the comments. And that's another thing too. Another thing I think that happens is there will be a creator that has a legitimate reasoned critique. Like Cindy will have a reasoned critique, or Samira has a reasoned critique. But what it opens up the floodgates to the comment section, and what happens is you hold that creator responsible for all this hate that you think you have. You seen all this comments like, oh, you see this? You see what saying to me? Because they were all leaving it there you again. So you see them as the like gatekeeper for that hate. And now it's like, I want you, like I'm mad at you. That's why I'm it's like you have created the consensus, and I'm
you're next.
I just think celebrities need to do a better job of that. Like you fighting back, it's not going to stop shit. It's actually going to encourage it. It's going to make people talk about it. Like we're literally doing a whole discussion about your reaction that happened 2 weeks ago.
I know.
Like, and this is something that could have just like went over and just not talked about as much. But you fed into it. It would have died down because we're in a 24-hour news cycle. We were not going to be talking about this for days and days and days and days. You were going to see it because you're online looking at it. Like, I think we need to be adults sometime and realize, like, hey, you know what? This is what's going on. Let me just log out for a little second to decompress. But we can't, like, we also have a struggle to put our phones down. And I think that's the real enemy for a lot of creators is that we cannot put the phones down for a second. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with other creators who complain about them being talked about. And I'm like, sister, you are doing really good. I get the bill thing doesn't affect everybody the same way, like, you know, because you are a human being, but also you can take some time away, like work something out, do something for future you so you don't have to worry about these things. If these things start to pop up and you see it getting to that point, hey, I'm going to take a second, because she did take a step away from social media for a little minute, and then she came back.
Then they critique you for that, though. Now they think they're
going to critique you regardless, but you're going to have to.
I'm just saying that, though, what happens if you're in this space, like, at the end of the day, regular people are just people. It doesn't matter, like, no amount of whatever changes the fact that emotionally we get wounded. We be wounded by shit people said to us as a kid, passive-aggressive comments, remarks. So imagine thousands of people saying the worst things about you, and you yourself might be struggling to feel good about you. You might be depressed. You might feel this, you might feel that.
If you
and
struggling
that
to feel good about you, why are you talking shit about other people?
But that's why. That is why, though. That is why.
She thought he was giggling with them. She thought they were all having a jolly fat time.
Here's my thing. I feel like I hear what you're saying, Olay, and I do agree that at the end of the day, we are human. But then I also feel like with great power comes great responsibility. And Cardi B's level of celebridom has reached a point where, baby, you are at a point, you need to have somebody taking your phone. Like there has to be a certain level of, I get it, you're human, but you're also Cardi B. And I was around with Cardi B when she was Love Hip Hop. I was around for that. I've watched her entire career growth. She come from a long way.
Come on.
Okay, I was there for all of that. And my thing is, I feel like at a certain point, there should have been a shift where she did fall back from social media, because that's how you started, but that ain't gotta be how you finish. And I just think that being chronically, you can't have both. I think that as content creators, I have been under fire, and it is a lot, but I also got my ass on social media and went for a walk. So all I'm saying is, when you get to a certain point where when you have shit to lose, or when your brand when social media gets to a point where your brand can be made or broken within a matter of hours, I really just feel like there is more responsibility for you to have someone on your team or some kind of wherewithal of, it might be best for me to just kind of fall back a little bit. But I
was gonna say like something something I think about a lot. Yeah, because it's funny, because like that's what I tell Olay all the time. I love being on the podcasting end of things and not on the YouTube spaces just quite yet, because YouTube a different kind of mean girl. I don't like her. However,
YouTube ain't nowhere near as mean as Twitter.
Look, and so I always say, like, when I remember going viral, I'm going viral on Threads right now, and a bunch of in the comments because Drake talking to a white woman, and I said, y'all are upset, but one thing I made a rule. I'm gonna mute that post every time. The post is gonna be muted. And so I understand. And like, I'm not even like the largest creator in the world, but however, when those moments spike, I know part of it, I think around like, as musicians and celebrities felt the need to begin to be a part of, like, they felt the need to have to interact, and parasocial relationships became even greater due to social media. There's a space where like, there's an assumption that this is what marketing must continue to look like in order to build a relationship, rather than building experiences around what your audience can cater to a lot of the time. Like, that's why I'm part of that Lady Beehive, right? Like, I enjoy the experience around what could happen. So going to a concert, getting merch, getting music or whatever, cool. However, I think for us, the note to kind of take as creators is like recognizing when those parasocial relationships require boundaries in a different kind of way. Like, that's why I appreciate what Justin was doing after a while. Be like, taking that step back. I took note. I said, I don't want to experience that. That's different. I think Jackie Aina, she quit with a block button. And so I think around a lot of other creators who were able to like really create good boundaries, but because of us as human beings don't know what's like, none of this is normal. Seeing ourselves all the time, hearing our voices all the time, consistently looking ourselves and tearing ourselves apart. That's not a normal thing. That's why they always say celebrities have to be built different. Yeah. So for the fact that celebrity is pretty much accessible to so many people now, that's why we're seeing more crash outs and stuff like that, is because
and I do empathize with that.
So like, how do we find that balance, right?
My last comment, and I'm gonna let Chica talk, then Deshaun talk, and whoever else wants to this is my last comment. I'm not saying this, let me make sure I'm clear about this. I'm not saying this particular, what I'm about to say with respect to Cardi B in this situation, because the criticisms were legitimate, right? It's a situation of legitimate critique. But I'm responding to Cindy and Marquise in this general idea of how people should navigate hate on the internet. I have a big problem with the fact that there is an incentive that the larger internet people go on the internet and be as nasty as humanly possible. And there's way more people being nasty to a much smaller amount of people that are creators or have platforms. And there is they have an incentive to convince everybody that the problem is on the people who critique that. It's always about what you should do to avoid and respond to this nastiness, rather than us really seriously critiquing behaving like this on the internet. And I know people think, it's going to happen anyway. The internet big. Well, we think that the world is much bigger than the internet. These problems are much bigger, way more pervasive in the world, and we take it on to critique it and how we handle these things and respond it. And I think in the same way, the internet, especially the social media culture, this hasn't always been the world. When you think in the grand scheme of the world, the internet and social media in our life is brand new. And this is the time for us to start addressing what is a certain level of riot mob. We have a mob mentality on the internet. We are nasty as we think that we can and should be able to see any Jesus thing we want to anybody with a public profile. God forbid it's a platform. God forbid it's in any way a platform. And I think that the onus should not be on people. Sure, we have to do things. They have to navigate the world. So you have to try to do the things that you can. Like, I agree with that, Justin. You gotta figure it out in this. But I think ultimately the bigger problem, not in the situation with Cardi and this critique of this or whatever, not, but the overall why you see people lashing out and crashing out and feeling the way that they feel because of how they experience the internet. That is a big problem that is going to have a major psychological effect on so many people. And I feel like we have to start we have to stop moving past well, the internet and everybody's going to do that anyway. So let's talk about what you should do and what you should do and what you should do. Maybe thousands of people shouldn't be kicking backs in.
But we shouldn't validate it and create space for it. Like we shouldn't just let these things happen. What I was going to say is that when it comes to even how she handled the situation, and I'm gonna get off Cardi, I'm gonna go to the larger point in a second. But for this Cardi situation, she hasn't ever lost anything for these controversies. You see what I'm saying? She's never it's never been long-standing ramifications for the words she chooses, the things that she's done, the way that she has responded, even when she's been wrong in the past historically. So there is no incentive for her to not respond. It's literally just like Olay said, it's a part of the brand for her. Now, me personally, I've learned now that I don't have the privilege to be wrong. I don't get the space to be wrong and say the wrong thing at any given corner and juncture. And it goes back to the desirability politics that we've been speaking about this entire conversation, and how that plays into the way that we give certain people passes for the things that they say and do. So in that case, I think the responsibility, not to how she responds to criticism and hate, but the responsibility in how she responds to just simple critique falls on her to be mature enough to know you're not going to lose anything out of this anyway. So why not use these moments to learn? She's not getting canceled. No one's ever going to cancel her, especially for being fat phobic. You know what I'm saying? If I can get canceled for talking about a screaming baby and you can't get canceled for fat phobia, you know what I'm saying? No, you know what I'm saying? We got to call a spade a spade. We have to call a spade a spade because you learn about certain people learn what they can get away with, and we affirm it with how we respond to those people. So she's done and said enough problematic shit that she knows this is not even going to be a chink in her armor at the end of the day. So when you double down on things after when you know you're privileged, you know how you can wield it. You know it. That's when the conversation begins to bug me a little bit. But yeah, like you were saying, the concept of celebrity is inhuman in general, in my opinion. It was never supposed to be a thing. Being good at your job should have never wielded this much responsibility. And also with the age of social media becoming this huge thing and us having access to each other nonstop, the way that we've given just passes to people for being terrible, because the worse you are to someone, the more people see it and like it, and in the shadows engage with it and be like, ha ha ha, you said this mean thing, so I'm getting my shit off now. We have definitely fed the troll in that way of creating a mob mentality where it's just people be saying shit they don't even believe. I've had people say horrible things to me. I respond. They're like, "Oh my God, I tweeted you every day for a year. And I said all these nice things, and it's only when I say a negative." I'm like, "Huh?
And a motherfucker
You weirdo."
Say I love you right before they say some bullshit or try to tell you, but the other times they were proud of you. Fuck you. I seen this. I can't stand when someone goes, "I love Olay. I really like this," and then but a whole paragraph, "Hey, you expect me to that? I love you. No, thank you. No, nothing. I'm arguing about this."
You mentioned
that's why I
earlier,
do this thing where I respond to every if there's a good comment, I respond to at least 5 good comments and then the one negative. If I'm gonna eat this one person up, I need to respond to some good ones because people have been saying something. And I think sometimes the fans realize that they're not getting hey, I've been saying these things you only responded to the people who've been eating you up or saying something who's not a fan of you. They just
They
so
say
happen to
that
see
when
this
it's
video.
not true, though. They say I
Yeah.
respond to everything,
They
like good
do.
and
That's
bad.
another thing. They do just put that out there. They'll be like, I like anytime on the rare occasion talk shit about me, right? And then when I tell you, ooh, talk shit about me by the hundreds and thousands on the daily, everywhere, across the everywhere. And on the rare occasion, it'll be like once every 3 to 4 months or something. I'd be like, this, I can't stand how you particular, but everybody be like, oh, allow me, you know, I'm like, that's a lie.
Yeah, it
I've
isn't
said-
true.
Right? I'm like, I just don't feel the need. Like, to me, that look weird if I go out like trying to show you. You see, when I be loving the fans, like sometimes I'll like mail out like randomly see I have people who really with me in the audience, and I'll like, hey, what's your address? Let me go send you a thing. Or I sent like people free Raheem plushies when they came on shit, but I didn't like put that out there because I look like, don't I look crazy? Like the people who give homeless people stuff and then they recording
With
it.
the
You're a terrible
phone.
person. Yeah, I don't like that shit. So, but that is how it be. But
I
you're right. That's an
remember
excellent model. I'm about to put that into action.
it is a great
Justin.
model. I
I'm about to
remember
tell
someone
five people love.
Yeah, I
someone
like that.
called me a liar because I tweeted one time that I found $300 in a jacket that I wore along like 2 years prior, and they were like, "She lying. She just want to flex that she's making money now." Blah, 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 blah. And even in that moment, like responding to that hate, what I did was I was like, "Okay, cool. Anybody who tweets me like some like a random false fact about like something, like good luck, I've CashApped every single person who did that $300." And the people who were sitting there calling me a liar had to sit there and be, oh, I'm my bad. I believe you. I believe, like,
Girl, I
there
I
are
got a false
creative
fact.
ways.
Spare change.
I got a false fact.
I got a
Hey,
false
look.
fact.
I got a
too.
false fact and a cash
My
app.
my birthday's coming up, Chica. Yeah.
My birthday already.
Me.
My birthday already passed.
I too have a fact that's
I
false.
got a-
you know?
I got a false fact. Uh-oh.
Everybody sent me a false fact. I'm cash apping everybody.
I'm screaming.
Girl, you ain't told me nothing.
Okay, that was a good time.
Deshaun, I feel like you should have final words. Or Cindy, you were talking.
There
You were-
is
I
one
let
thing I
Deshaun-
wanted to say before we did wrap up, and that I didn't get a chance to while y'all were talking. Deshaun and Chica, y'all were talking about language, and y'all were talking about Miss Naomi and how she's being perceived, and how, Chica, you were saying that you don't want to be confined to how society is just trying to box you in. And what I wanted to say is what I find interesting is language and how language plays a role in that, and how even as a person in a marginalized group, when you try to combat that system that's trying to box you in and say, hey, I'm fine regardless, society will then try to put you back in that box. Like, no, bitch, hold on. Let's not get too much dip on that chip, you know? But what I find interesting is it's as if people in the oppressive, the oppressive group feel the need to give you permission to feel better about yourself. So the way that Miss Naomi worded her passage, it's, I'm aware that society sees me this way. However, I still view me in this way, which then gives the oppressive group a chance to say, oh no, we give you permission to like yourself and see yourself as beautiful. That's fine. But had Naomi said, I look fine as today. Baby, I'm clearing everybody today. My face card never declines. Oh my
Said, is
God.
the face card in the room with us?
Girl, I'm so sick of hearing face card, body T. My God.
Why do we have to
Who
like
are you?
validate? Yeah, like we have to
Who are you to
validate what
say
they
that?
think.
You
Slutty
know?
way and
So
shut
it's like, if you're gonna have confidence, have the kind of confidence that we think you should have. You should feel good enough in a way that we think is okay. But if you think you feel too good, girl, who do you think you
Before
back
you
to the
feel
little box you was
good,
in?
address how ugly I think you are. And
Exactly.
then from
Exactly.
there, however you feel is valid. But first you have to admit you're ugly, right?
You're a little rough to look at. You know?
Terms and
Okay,
conditions
all
may
right.
apply.
This shit is
Literally.
annoying
And
as
I
hell.
just
Terms and childish.
when we're talking about the conversation of destigmatizing the word fat, as long as fat phobia is an oppressive system, the word will always have weight. Same thing as all these things. Until that system is dismantled itself, the words and the products of that system will always have a weight to it. And so I just want to say that. But yeah, I felt like if Naomi came in talking her shit in the most proper form, this whole conversation would have been so different. It's the same thing when a fat person in a body that's not curvy or doesn't have the physical features, if they have too much dip on their chip, their comments are atrocious. They're atrocious. And it's because
you're only allowed to be
society
humble.
doesn't
Yeah.
You can only be
if you're humble
confident
and nice,
humbly,
we'll passively
you know?
give you some love. If you
Yeah.
are humble and nice, then we'll allow you to, we can bestow a little bit of niceness on you, but you cannot be around here thinking like, if you're a person that people think is unattractive and you're humble and nice, people will give you the reward of calling you attractive. Being
Yeah.
like, no,
Oh my
It's
but not you,
true.
or whatever.
true.
You
But
can feel
that's
good
what I
about
was,
yourself. It's fine. Yeah.
that's the fundamental point in my like
You
politics
can
of
feel
ugliness
confident,
video.
but not like that.
Yeah.
It's
But
like,
not
Yeah,
so
I think that's
much.
because they
Simmer
tolerating
down.
you for the most
Yeah.
part. Like we only
Yeah.
tolerating you.
They
Like
think
you do
they
too
should-
much. Hey, girl.
I think
Better
you
stay
should be
inside
happy to
that,
be there. Period. Like
Mhm.
whatever position they place you in as a fat person or as an unattractive person or whatever, they're like, okay, you get to be in the room, but don't say nothing. And then
Stay in
the
that
more
corner, bitch. Don't
feeble,
get on the
exactly,
stage.
the more feeble you
Out
appear,
the
the
door, you gotta
smaller
go,
you
bitch.
make yourself, the more you minimize your own being and how you look at yourself, the more you
Mhm.
minimize your confidence, the more they're like, oh, that cup is basically empty. I can give a little drop. I can give a little drop. Once you show these motherfuckers that your glass is full, they're like, knock that shit over. I'll knock all this shit over.
That's like
You don't
lip
get to
gloss
have
on
that.
TikTok.
You don't get
It's
to have
literally
that.
a walking cognitive dissonance for people. I can't determine how the world gets to treat you because I should be able to judge you. You shouldn't be confident. I didn't give you that confidence.
Right.
Mhm.
Right? Like that's such a crazy concept to me.
Like,
'Cause I'm
where'd you
just
get that?
Nah, like, how'd you get this? I didn't give that. You don't got social clout. What's
It
this?
reminds me a lot.
It's wild to my brain.
It reminds me a lot of like when I had a smaller audience online, specifically on Twitter. I used to post, well, on Instagram too. Actually, I used to post like just random thirst traps and things like that because I could, and
Period.
and I
Batty, shot o'clock.
thing, yeah. But I really, but after my audience started to grow, even though majority of my audience was coming from my work around anti-fatness, it was like the less I was able to present as someone who was confident in their body. I was just a brain. I was just a mind. And the moment that I became someone who was more than just my mind, they were like, "What the fuck is this? We ain't signed up." And I'm like, "Well." So,
they be telling me that.
But I see around here all the time who get to operate in this dual reality, right? Where they can be both intellectual, both a brilliant person who is also able to share their body with whomever is following them because they're confident in it, right? But they also look a very different way.
Hassan.
And I Hassan, and well, yes, in fact, and many
Well, yes.
and many of the other like quote unquote leftists online. But what I really want to say is, I think
I was like,
I wasn't shade. I love her.
it's no tea, no shade, no.
I don't even know.
no,
some
no,
people-
no, no. It
that
was
was the whole
not
tree.
shade. It wasn't shade.
It was the leftist online.
I got to do
We
some
said-
research because I'm not sure who Hassan is.
You know, I know that I be out here living for a bad bitch aesthetic.
Listen,
I live my life. I know
We
the
see you.
thing.
We're on
It
your
wasn't
case.
shade. It was just ass.
Listen,
We're on your ass.
listen, Fred. You know I ain't gonna never do that to you. But what I want to say is, we deeply underestimate how much, because of anti-Blackness, oppressed people want to be the master who holds the whip. And I think it is deeply hard for us to acknowledge the fact that desire, the libidinal economy, this thing that structures the world, that allows for us to understand who is and is not attractive, and therefore who does and does not have a right to be criminalized, objectified, dehumanized, violated, harmed, abused, is overdetermined by our desire to be the ones who hold the whip. Fat folks are just supposed to be able to take the lashings, are just supposed to be able to be fine with being the beings, the things who are to be whipped, right? Like that just is, it just is what it is. And what I want us to get comfortable with is acknowledging the ways that anti-Blackness helps to construct that as true, and the ways that, because of how much we have bought into this desire to be the master who holds the whip, and who not only holds the whip but wields it, we have completely ignored, erased, dismissed an entire body of people who have said for far longer than 2 decades, right, that this is our experience and we don't deserve to experience this. And that is true too for Black people. And I think that that is so hard for some Black folks to sit with, because we all know about our relationship to slavery, right? In ways that we actually will never be able to fully understand. Slavery, I think, is just that violent that we will never have a full understanding of how it has impacted and affected us. But Black folks who are not fat, which is really an oxymoron, because to be Black is to be always in proximity to fatness and vice versa. Check out Belly the Beast, The Politics of Anti-Fatness as Anti-Blackness for more. But but the way that quote unquote non-fat Black folks seek to be slave master, I think really has to be acknowledged in this conversation. And in all conversations around this, folks, what folks don't want to sit with comfortably is that everyone is striving to be in as close proximity as possible to whiteness and to be white. And to do that, you have to carry a whip. And somebody has to be at the other end of that whip. We want to strive to have more money. We want to strive to have an obscene amount of money. We want to strive to have an obscene amount of beauty. We want to strive to be in close proximity to celebrity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to be able to inform who has to be whipped and who does not. And I think like that is the bottom line of this entire conversation. That is why it is so deeply disheartening and frustrating to witness thin people talk in the ways that they do and engage fat folks or otherwise quote unquote ugly people as they do, because they do so without the clarity, the consciousness, the understanding that they are only simply trying to whip somebody else, and they're okay with doing so.
Real rap bars. I think that sounds like a final word if I've ever heard one. Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Illuminati verse is huge, and I want to tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Illuminati verse has 6 channels. On the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels, every single channel in the Illuminati verse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always easily find them. Okay? Remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Illuminati, to find my Illuminati productions, which are my long-form video essays and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Illuminati Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Illuminati Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay Friends, for my podcast, Olay Friends. New episodes of Olay Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And also, both Olay Friends and Olay Chill are both available on streaming platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Illuminati Bites if you want my takes but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Illuminati for my written work.